Welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy, Meccan Revelations, part 26, in which we will continue reading the Meccan Revelations, an English translation of the Futuhat by Ibn al-Arabi. If you would like to start at the beginning, or really anywhere except for part 26, but you would like to hear me recite Meccan Revelations, does that make sense? You can start at the beginning, or you can navigate the playlist and you can jump to any point between the beginning and now, whenever now is for you. For me, it's part 26, but if you're in the future, it could be part 30, 50, who knows. Here's the playlist. You can click that and navigate it. Best wishes to you. For those who are still here, we'll do part 26. Before we get to it, though, I just wanted to do a little bit of shameful self-promotion. Sorry to interrupt, but I believe the phrase you're looking for is shameless self-promotion. Oh, why is that? That's just what people say, like they're being shameless, or like they have no shame or whatever. They're not ashamed to do their self-promotion, you know. So if it's shameless, that means that there's shame involved, right? Like there's shame in doing self-promotion, and by doing self-promotion, acting like there's no shame, then it's shameless, right? So to say shameful self-promotion is to acknowledge that there is shame in it, but do it anyway, right? Sure, you know, however you want to say it is fine. All right, well, either way, I'm going to do a little bit of self-promotion, and there is shame involved. So by now, many of you probably are already aware that there are 3 of me. The hell was that? 4 if you count Pymander. And I am Frater BT. It's my turn to host Meccan Revelations. We're on a rotation. And Gwydion has Gwydion's Astral Coffee House and Gwydion's Astral Podcast, and he used to host the Art Walk videos back in the day. Those are here, by the way. That's vintage Gwydion. Gwydion's a bit older than that. He started doing the Art Walks actually October. Was it October? I think the first recorded one, the first video, if you were there, then you know. I think that first one, if I'm not mistaken, was October of 2006. And they started going up every month. And the first surviving one, though, is January of 2007. And used to go around to all the galleries that would open on the second Thursday of the month in downtown Los Angeles, wearing the black hat. Then that got stolen. Then it was the red hat. Anyway, that's Gwydion. Edward, he's got his channel. He does the travel videos. He's written some books. This is his channel here. And so that's Edward. Whereas I am Frater BT, and primarily I've got my main, what I'll call my main channel, which is called the Esoteric Nerd Podcast, in which I have interviewed a number of people, in esoterica in general, and where many podcasts like to focus on, this is the latest thing by the latest author. Esoteric Nerd Podcast, sometimes we have 1 or 2 famous authors we're interviewed, but also people who are just starting out, people who, maybe they have a small website and they just kind of have a little thing going. Sometimes people who are brand new to things, and they were like, hey, can I ask you a few questions? I'm just starting out, and I had some questions about tarot. And at the time, I was like, I'll answer any question you have as long as we do it in the form of a podcast interview. And I record it and put it up. It was audio only for the first a few years, and then they started being video, starting with Joe Zabinski. Anyway, that's the Esoteric Nerd podcast. But there is another channel. You know me as Frater BT, but my full name, well, technically is Greatly Honored Frater BT, but that's kind of like calling yourself the Dalai Lama or something. So, I mean, it's like the Greatly Honored, that means you're the head of an order. And though I am technically greatly honored and the head of an order, I don't like to use it. So it's called a veil when people who have the GH, they go by VH, to be humble. I'm not the top dog. I'm just one of the top 10 dogs, you know. I don't wear the blue cloak. I just wear a white robe like everyone else, you know. So it's VH. It's like a sign of humility, even though it sounds like absolute arrogance. The point is, I've got a YouTube channel called VH Frater BT, all one word, VHFRATER BT. And that channel, see, what happened was, just briefly, for about 2 decades, I was secretly doing these rituals, right? And, I got to where that was like the one consistent thing in my life. People would come and go, relationships would come and go, teachers would come and go, students would come and go, everything in life would come and go, except for my rituals. And so I got very smooth with it over the, couple of decades. And then at a certain point, I was going through a process. I left the group I was with. And then one of the first things I did was I tore down the curtains. I had these black curtains up on the walls of my temple room, which was adjacent just next to there was a secret closet. There was actually not a secret closet. There was a closet with a secret door in the back. And then on the other side of that door was a separate room. That's where the temple was. That's where the curtains, black curtains, were covering the windows and everything. And even I think I had like some kind of cardboard to keep light from coming in the windows. I took all the curtains down, but I left everything else up. And so then for the very first time, I put on all my regalia and I did my rituals. It was up on what they call the first floor here, the second story. It was, and it's up on a hill, so it's not like people could really easily see in, but sometimes I'd be by the window and like the neighbors down there or over there or off there could see me if they were looking with binoculars. And so at first it was like, after doing it secretly for so long, it was like kind of an adrenaline thing, but I wasn't doing it for the adrenaline. I was doing it to peel back the layers, rather than hide in this cocoon, rather than, I took a vow never to reveal this, for instance, this symbol here. It's shocking to reveal it. Only Aleister Crowley did that, and we, of course, didn't like him back then, whatever. But what's my point? My point is, I did that, and I got used to doing my rituals with the windows not open, but like glass with, you could see through them. And then one day, I just decided, what the heck? And I took my phone and I went to Facebook and I hit live stream. I just hit go live. And I had this Victorian picture rail. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's like this little thing that goes around the perimeter of near the roof of a room. And I just stuck the camera up there and I did my 15-minute, 20-minute, whatever morning rituals. And so I started doing that and streaming it on Facebook between like 2016 into 2017. And, people would watch it and comment and stuff like that. And it was a thing. And then more recently, like a couple years ago, I decided to go dig up all those video files and put them up on this channel that I think I had. For some reason, I brought it to life. I put an old picture, this picture of me when I was like 12. No, actually, I was probably 20, maybe 21 when that picture was taken. And that's the profile pic on VH Frater BT. And I took all the videos of me doing rituals and I put them up as videos on that channel. And this is where the self-promotion part comes up, is there are currently 499 subscribers. And I would like for this part 26 of Meccan Revelations to result in there being 500. You can be the 500th one. Just click through, hit subscribe, and then come back and you can watch the rest of this video. All right, you ready? And here's the link. Go for it. Bye. Thank you. And that's the end of the self-promotion. Now comes the recital. All right. Now, if I recall correctly, there was a bunch of... Oh, right. We finished the introduction part by Michel. Now we're going to read a little bit more Michel, but then we'll actually get into the translation. So let's hit it. The Soul's Return. Chapter 302. Editor Edward, what is this music? It is Café de Anatolia. It's a 2-hour track called Arabic House 2024, mixed by Billy Esteban. I'll put a link in the description below. All right. The first half of chapter 3, this is Michel, the editor. The first half of chapter 302 is concerned with the proper understanding of the metaphysical relations of the worlds of Ghaib and Shahada, the visible world, quote, when the quote visible end quote world must be understood in its true condition as the manifestation of the quote unseen end quote, governed by its spiritual forms and continuously quote returning end quote to its creative source in the spiritual realm. The passage translated here is immediately preceded by an illustration of one aspect of this broader reality, the relations of the human, quote, spirits, end quote, to their physical forms in the visible world. There, Ibn Arabi strongly denies that men's individual spiritual forms are determined by their physical, quote, constitution, end quote. Instead, quote, the spirits are distinguished by their, parentheses, own individual, end parentheses, forms, end quote, before they are joined with their bodies. This discussion inevitably leads, in the passage translated here, to the question of the eschatological, end of the worldy, right? Quote, return, end quote, of those spirits after the separation from their earthly bodies. After passing in review some alternative conceptions, parentheses, which would tend to minimize the spiritual responsibility of each individual and the full responsibility of the last judgment, and other scriptural promises, end parentheses. Ibn Arabi alludes to his own characteristic understanding of the individual's ongoing spiritual development until the universal, quote, greater resurrection, with a capital R, end quote, in the intermediate original world, a conception that is aptly illustrated elsewhere in his numerous descriptions of personal encounters with the souls or spiritual entities of prophets, saints, and others in that realm. In fact, as he goes on to point out, parentheses, following a number of famous hadith already mentioned in our introduction, and parentheses, the inner realities of the, quote, unseen, and, quote, spiritual world, including paradise and hell, are always present and already visible to the people of unveiling, those who have awakened their spiritual senses. He concludes with scriptural citations that forcefully emphasize the full universality of this situation and at the same time suggest the corresponding aims of revelation. Now it's not italics, so I think it's safe to say we're about to start reading Ibn Arabi, translated into English. Let's go. 3 dots. Good start. God's messenger said, quote, if 3 dots. What are we doing here? Is this Polytech Society or what? there were no confusion in your hearts, then you would see what I see and hear what I hear. End quote. A child shivers in the cold. Let us bring him silver and gold. Bring him a blanket. He's a child. Do you think he... Bracket parentheses 4, end bracket parentheses, God said, quote, bracket parentheses 3 dots, we sent down to you the reminder, end bracket parentheses, so that you might make clear to the people what was sent down to them, parentheses already, end parentheses, end quote, Quran 1644. Good year. Now, what could be more straightforward than this clear declaration, bracket parentheses, i.e., through the Quran and the Prophet, and bracket parentheses, question mark? But where is the person who opens up the place, bracket parentheses, of his heart in order, bracket parentheses, to receive the influences of his Lord? 3 dots, question mark. Such a one is rare indeed! Exclamation point. Translation. As for when the spirits are separated from these material supports, bracket parentheses, of their physical bodies, and bracket parentheses, one group of our fellows say that the spirits become completely separate from these materials and return to their source. Just as the sun's rays, bracket parentheses, that happen to be, and bracket parentheses, reflected by a polished mirror, return to the sun. Bracket parentheses, i.e., do not disappear, and bracket parentheses, if the mirror becomes tarnished. But these people had 2 different ways of conceiving this. By the way, that sound, it's the chair. It's nothing unsavory. 2 different ways of conceiving this. Let's move on. One group of them said that the spirits were not, bracket parentheses, individually, and bracket parentheses, distinguishable after their separation from their bodies, any more than the water in jars along the banks of a river can be distinguished from the water of the river once those jars have broken and their water has returned to the river. So, bracket parentheses, men's and bracket parentheses bodies are, bracket parentheses, like, and bracket parentheses, those containers. And the river water that filled them is like, bracket parentheses, their, and bracket parentheses, spirits in relation to the universal spirit. I'm listening. Now another group of them, that was what one group says. I for a moment forgot about that and thought that's what Ibn Arabi was saying. I suppose now he's going to explain why that group is wrong. We'll see. We'll keep reading, find out. Now another group of them said that, on the contrary, these spirits do acquire good or bad dispositions through their proximity to the body, so that they continue to be distinguished by those dispositions when they are separated from their bodies. It is as though those jars contained things that changed that water from its, bracket parentheses, original, and bracket parentheses, condition with regard to its color, taste, or smell, so that when it is removed from those jars, it still retains in itself the color, taste, or smell it acquired, which would make the universal spirit something akin to sewer water. There must be some kind of filter. Let's call it the Last Judgment. Never mind. Where were we? Similarly, God preserves those acquired dispositions in the spirits. And in this respect, this group were in agreement with some of the philosophers. I guess if he's one of those like bathwater perverts, I don't mean to call God a bathwater pervert. It's another way of putting it. Never mind. Another group said that the governing spirits never cease governing in this world. The only problem I have with it is the soap. Never mind. So when they are transferred to the intermediate world, they continue to govern bodies in that world. And these are bracket parentheses, like and bracket parentheses, the form in which a person sees himself in dreams. Hence, death is also like that. And this is what is symbolized by the, quote, trumpet, end quote. Do you mean Gabriel's trumpet? Or perhaps Moroni's trumpet? No, of course not. Nobody means Moroni's trumpet. Except for the Mormons, but they don't count. Then the spirits are... I'm just kidding. If there's any Mormons out there watching, I'm just joshing you. Then the spirits are raised up on the day of the resurrection in their physical bodies, as they were in this world. This is the extent of the disagreement among our fellows concerning the spirits after their separation, bracket parentheses, from the physical body, and bracket parentheses. As for the different views concerning this matter of those who are not our fellows, they are numerous. So by his fellows, he means the other Sufis in his time. I would say in his place and time, but chances are if there's a Sufi in like the Muslim part of China in the 1100s with a particular philosophy, then it probably got back to him in Damascus or Spain or wherever he was when he heard it. Can you hear the rain? Where was I? Yes. But our purpose is not to mention, bracket parentheses, all, and bracket parentheses, the sayings of those who are not on our path. I mean those normie Islamics, not the Sufis. Anyway, no, K-N-O-W, my brother, may God, what if I'm a sister? No, I'm just kidding. It was the 1100s, and he was talking to boys. He was definitely assuming that whoever was going to read this had a penis. It's the way it was back then. Maybe there's something good in this in spite of the overall, all-pervasive sexism that he wasn't apart from. He probably would have gotten executed if he had been out there saying, hey, women should study this stuff too. Yeah. Anyway, no, my brother, may God guide and protect you with his mercy, capital H to emphasize that it's a boy. No, because you capitalize it when it's God. That the garden which is attained by those who are among its people in the other world is, bracket parentheses, already, and bracket parentheses, visible to you today. In italics. I wonder if the italics were Ibn's. With respect to its place, though not its form. So you are in the garden, with the in being in italics. Transformed in whatever state you happen to be, but you don't know you are in it, because you are veiled from it by the form in which it manifests itself to you. Exclamation point! Now the people of unveiling, who perceive what is unseen by ordinary men, do see that place, if it is the garden, bracket parentheses, of paradise, and bracket parentheses. Is there another garden that you would be referring to with a capital G in this context? Is there a garden of pomegranates? Is there a garden of... I can't think of anything witty. Never mind. Yes, the Garden of Paradise, where Hassan bin Saul would take the people on hash and wake them up and brainwash them to become... You know this story. No, we're not talking about that one. That was a fake one. He's talking about the real one. All right, where was I? Then they see a green meadow, or if it is Gehenna, that's not good. Then they see it according to the traits of its bitter cold, burning winds, and the other things God has prepared in it. Oh, thanks, God. And most of the people of unveiling see this at the beginning of their path. We would know it today as a bad trip for those who've taken hallucinogens. Now, the revelation alluded to in bracket parentheses, Muhammad's and bracket parentheses, the bracket parentheses meaning that Michel inserted that in. Ibn Arabi didn't write that. Michel thought it necessary to put that in there. Saying, okay, so it's a quote from the Quran. Quote, between my grave and this pulpit is one of the meadows of the garden, end quote. I assume that that's from the Quran. I don't know, it doesn't say. So the people of unveiling see it as a meadow, just as he said. And they see the Nile, Euphrates, Seyhan, and Jahan as the rivers of honey, water, wine, and milk for the nerds that like to do correspondences. Here's your homework. Nile corresponds to honey, I assume, because it's written in this order. Euphrates corresponds to water, or frat, if you will, the ancient name of the Euphrates. Seyhan, S-A-Y-H-A-N, corresponds to wine. Does that have a modern name, or is it still called Seyhan and I'm ignorant of its existence? And Jahan corresponds to milk. Okay, so put that all together, compare and contrast it with this diagram of the Garden of Eden before the fall. And it's 4 rivers. And let me know in what ways it overlaps accurately and in what ways it doesn't, and any interesting discrepancies that are telling. And write a brief essay, at least a paragraph or two, and put it in the comment below. That's your homework. Don't forget Meccan Revelations 26. So write that all down, rewind this, and write that all down. I know you can't resist. Anyway, I look forward to reading your thoughts. In the garden, bracket parentheses, Quran 47:15, and bracket parentheses, as bracket parentheses, Muhammad, and bracket parentheses, said, since the prophet reported that these rivers are part of the garden, but the person whose vision has not been unveiled by God, who remains blinded by his veil, cannot perceive that. He is like a blind man in a park. He is not at all absent from it, yet he does not see it. But the fact that he does not see it does not imply that he is not in it. On the contrary, he really is in it, with is being in italics. The same is true of the place that God's messenger mentioned as being part of the fire, bracket parentheses, of hell, end bracket parentheses, such as the valley of Muhasir at Mina and others. This is why he prescribed to his community that they should hurry when they leave there, for he sees what they cannot see, and he witnesses what they do not. And some people share with him this unveiling, while others do not, depending on what God has willed concerning that. according to the wisdom he concealed in his creation. He and his capitalized. Do you not notice, for example, that when God protects persons of scrupulous piety from eating something, bracket parentheses, that is not outwardly, and bracket parentheses, illicit, one of the signs warning them is that the food is illicit is that in their vision it changes into the form of something, bracket parentheses, clearly, and bracket parentheses, forbidden, such as blood or pork, for example, so that they find it impossible to eat it. Then when they inquire as to how that food was obtained, they discover that it was not acquired in the bracket parentheses divinely and bracket parentheses prescribed manner. Not halal. Thus the people of God have eyes with which they see, ears with which they hear, hearts with which they understand, and tongues with which they speak. And all of them are different from the form of these bracket parentheses ordinary and bracket parentheses eyes and ears and hearts and tongues. Hungry eyes. No, it doesn't say that. I added that. It's editorial commentary. So it is with those eyes that they witness, with those ears that they listen, with those hearts that they understand, and with those tongues that they speak. And their words hit the mark. This is a fun double meaning, double entendre there with mark, if the mark is like the person who's being duped by the con artist, right? It's pretty funny. Or sad. Anyway, for it is not the eyes that are blind to the truth and unable to grasp it, but the hearts that are in their breast. Quran 22:46. They are deaf, dumb, blind, so they do not take their understanding. Quran 2:171. From God, and so they do not return. Quran 2:18. To God. By God, their eyes are in their faces, their hearing in their ears, and their tongues in their mouths, but divine providence did not favor them, nor were they destined for the best outcome. Quran 21:101. So praise be to God in thankfulness for his having given us life through these hearts and tongues and eyes and ears. Tell us that. No. Yeah, that's the reading for today. And hope you enjoyed it. And just because I pointed to Art Walk, the Thursday Art Walk videos earlier for Gwydion, and the Edward Reeb channel for Edward, and 2 channels for me, there's somebody that got left out. Somebody who yesterday put up a video called Mahavaga 2 Part 8 that's worth checking out, at least the first 10 minutes. It's right here. All right, and that's 5 links. You're only allowed to put up 5 links. So, yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you today. And I'm going to be taking a little vacay. So it's going to be probably Tuesday. Today's Thursday. It'll be Tuesday. Little vacay, not a big vacay. It's vacation. So the kids, they shorten things. And is there anything else? Anything I'm forgetting? No, I don't think so. Next up on Chicken Philosophy, after the vacay, you can expect to see Edward reading a little bit of Carl Jung.